My name is James Osborne. I work for a number of organisations involved with training and development and working with peer-to-peers on the leadership side for recruitment companies. There's quite a few of you here in the room that I know. I've met quite a lot of you before. And I thought this was quite a good opportunity for me to, I suppose, come clean with a lot of you. I've been leading a bit of a double life these last 20 years or so, and I have an addiction that I wanted to sort of share with you, if that's okay, and use this opportunity to do so. I'm addicted to sailing. I have been addicted to sailing for about 20 years now. I've been a sailing instructor for 20 years. I've been involved with a lot of offshore racing. I work with an organisation called Action Quest, where we take underprivileged children around the world, we put them on boats, we teach them life skills and development skills and leadership skills. And in fact, this summer we're actually relaunching our 2-day sabbatical program for recruitment company leaders. We're going to put some recruitment company owners on a boat and teach them some leadership skills on a boat as well. I'm very passionate about sailing. One of my favourite races in sailing is a thing called the Sydney to Hobart. Have any of you ever heard of the Sydney to Hobart yacht race? Yeah. I'm taking that as a negative. A couple of you have that, which is good. Which is great. So the Sydney to Hobart yacht race is probably one of the most famous, renowned yacht races there are in the world. It's about 630 nautical miles. It's one of the most treacherous passages, as I'm sure you can appreciate, going from Sydney down to Tasmania. Over the last few years, 10 yachts have actually sunk. And there have been 11 fatalities. In particular, in 1998, which was one of the worst years, where they had 5 yachts actually sunk and there were 6 fatalities. And only 40% of the actual fleet who started out actually completed the race as well. So it's a very treacherous race to go through it. There's a lot of lessons, I think, to be learned from sailing. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sailing today, if that's okay. So those of you who come here to talk about leadership, and we're afraid we're going to talk about sailing today, so I'm far more interested in that. Some of the conditions that yachts have to face when they're going through such a race like the Sydney to Hobart. These are some actual footage from the Sydney to Hobart yacht race over the last few years. And they give you a bit of a steering, a bit of a feel of some of the challenges and the conditions they have to go through when you're racing in a yacht offshore. Typically they try to complete the race in under 2 days. That's called the Holy Grail. Some yachts have completed that, some haven't actually been able to do so, and some are probably still out there trying to complete the race at the moment. And boats, like organisations, have to do a very similar thing. They have to move forward, whatever the conditions might be. Okay? You have prevailing winds, you have winds against you, you have currents and tides against you as well. The market at the moment for recruitment companies is fairly challenging, I think, and it's very different from potentially how it used to be. So, like a boat, an organisation has to think about how they're changing their course and adapting to the conditions that they have to face when they're sailing their boats. Can I just ask, how many of you are actually sailors in the room? Anyone actually been sailing before? So we've got a couple of sailors. Good, fantastic. I'm going to get you to do some stuff for me, if that's okay. I'm going to give those of you who aren't sailors a quick introduction to sailing. Keep it very crude and very, very simple. So on a sailing boat, those of you who've been on a sailing boat, there's lots of different things on a boat. It's quite confusing sometimes. I've mapped out some of the basic ones. Sails, mast, telltales, bow stern, deck, hull, and a rudder. Can you just shout out for me, what is a sail, first of all, on a boat? Now, I am going to ask for interaction. I won't give any passages on a particular lesson today. Miles?
A wing.
Sorry?
A wing.
A wing, that's right. So a sail, in essence, are the big, bright, colourful things that you see, sometimes white, sometimes multicoloured. People call them jibs, genoas, spinnakers. And they, in essence, are the things that take the boat forward, like a wing on an aeroplane. What is a mast?
The pole that holds the sail.
I'm sorry?
The pole that holds the sail.
The pole that holds the sail, absolutely right. So the mast is the thing in the middle of the boat, holds the main sail together. It's fairly rigid, but it can be flexible towards the wind as well. Does anyone know what a telltale is?
Tells you where the wind is coming from or going to.
No, not exactly.
Tells you how the wind's working on the sail.
How the wind is working on the sail, fantastic. The little sheets of ribbons on your sails, and they will determine how effective your sail positioning is in accordance to the wind. Anyone know what the bow of the boat is?
The front.
At the front of the boat, the stern.
Back.
Is it the back, the deck? The top. Okay, so it's meant to be really working here, but with me, okay? So the deck is the area where the crew and the skipper sit and hang out and play with the ropes and the sheets and things like that. The hull is the bottom, fantastic. So the hull is the bit at the bottom in essence which keeps the boat floating using its displacement. And finally the rudder. What is a rudder? That allows you to steer the boat in essence along with the sails as well. Okay? So this is my boat, this is the boat that I've got. This is also my organisation as well. And like an organisation, you have got to make sure that you have things working. What would happen on a boat if any of these things weren't working as effectively as they should be? You wouldn't get to where you wanted to get get to it. We may get there, but it may not get there as quickly and effectively as it should do. It might not necessarily sink, but it might do if the hole's got a hole in it. So if we think about it from a business point of view, the sales to me represent your brand and reputation. This is what people see. When you look offshore and you look at boats sailing around the place, what you look at and see is the sails. And the sails demonstrate what people think and see about your organisation. They are your brand reputation. The mast is your organisational structure. Everything centres and pivots around that. It is solid, but it can be flexible and it can flex according to the wind conditions. The telltales like your KPIs, your conversion ratios, your metrics. I know Russell's going to be talking after me a little bit about what Q19 do with metrics. And that allows you to really pivot and understand how you can tweak the way that you're approaching your business, the way you're moving forward to make sure you're making the most of the market conditions that you've got ahead of you. The bow is the vision. Where is your boat going? Where is your organisation going? The stern is looking back, the performance review. What have we done in the past? Has it worked? What can we do to improve going forward? The deck is the environment we give our staff to work in. Do we give them the right sort of environment to work in? Have they got all the tools to be able to do what they need to do? The hull is the culture and the values. This is the stuff that keeps an organisation really, really moving forward and keeps it solid and grounded. The culture and the values of an organisation. And finally is the rudder, the organisational strategy, which we can change and adapt as much as we like to according to the conditions of the wind. Your organisation must have all of those things in place and effective if it is to move forward, like a boat would in the same instance. Now, all of you will receive some sheets that as you walk through the door. I am going to make this interactive, so you just have to work with me as much as you can on this. On one of those sheets, you'll see a picture of a boat. And what I'd like you to do first of all, underneath that boat, I'd like you to turn to the people next to you, the people surrounding you, and I'd like you to identify, first of all, the brand reputation. I'd like you to identify 5 words that you would like every single one of your external customers to be saying about your brand if I was to meet them in a pub. Okay, great stuff, thank you. If you look at the words that you've written down there, what would happen to your business if every single customer in the external market was saying those 5 words about you and your brand? It will grow, it will significantly increase, you gain line honours in the yachting world. And to give you an example of where this actually works, one of the organisations that we work with in the southwest of England, over the last 12 months, their turnover was 3.3 million, that's now turned into 6.9 million over a 12-month period. Their employee engagement has increased from 52% to 86%, that's their internal employee engagement. And they have an 18% increase in the passive client traffic they get, so people calling into their offices asking them to do business. The main reason why this has happened is we went through exactly the same structure on the boat, and we got them to align and define exactly what are those key areas, the KPIs, the visions, the strategy, the culture, the values, and so on and so forth. The difference that it made is significant to the bottom line, which is obviously what we're talking about here in particular. Now, it's all well and good having a lovely boat, and boats look very pretty, and they're also incredibly expensive, by the way. But the thing about a boat is you're not really going to get anywhere unless you've got a crew on board the boat. So let's have a look at our crew on board the boat here. This is an example of some of my little crew, my little friends. And obviously at the front of at the back of the boat, at the stern of the boat, we've got our skipper. And the skipper is there to take the crew forward more than anything else. And the skipper, like you have in an organisation, is the leader of the boat, potentially. Now we spent a lot of time talking with skippers from the City's Hobart Yacht Race and other yachting races to ask them what are some of the key elements that make a great skipper in the sailing world on a boat, on a racing yacht in particular. Skippers need to be visionary. They need to be passionate, they need to be good decision makers to make quick decisions, they need to be team builders, they need to have integrity and conviction, people need to buy into them. They need to be open and honest, especially when things are going slightly wrong. They need to have empathy with their crew and what they're going through, especially if the race is over a 2 or 3 day period. They need to be effective communicators, absolutely key on a boat. They need to be flexible, they need to have drive, they need to be motivational, they need to lead by example, and they need to be innovative. They need to be able to come up with new ideas and new initiatives all the time. These traits down here will ultimately define the culture of a crew on a boat. Does everyone understand that? In a similar sort of way, we need to think about the internal culture that we have within our organisations. As leaders, skippers of our organisations, what is the type of culture that we're creating within our organisations? So I'd now like you to go back to your sheets. And on the third one down there, you'll see a box that says, a couple of lines that say internal culture. I'd like you to now write down, again with the person next to you, 5 words that you would like to define your internal culture. What are the behaviours and the values that you would like to see embedded within your business? They may exist at the moment, they may not. 5 key behaviours that you'd like to have in your organisation. An internal culture will determine the behaviours that your employees uphold during the working day. As leaders of a business, you need to make sure they're embedded within your organisation. So many organisations we work with talk about values, they talk about the culture, they can't really define it. If you can't define it, it's very hard to measure it. It's very hard to measure it, it's very hard to use it as part of your sales and strategy going forward. So why does leadership really matter within organisations? So if we think about it from this point of view, leadership creates direction and ambition for people, and that creates employee engagement. If you create employee engagement, something's happening. Your consultants become focused on targets, delivering targets. They become truly passionate about their products and their services. They become accountable, and they become team players, work with other people, sharing opportunities, sharing leads, sharing candidates, and so on and so forth. They become ethical and proud about what they're doing, proud about their brand. I'm amazed how many recruitment consultants I still talk to. When I ask them what do they do for a living, they say they're not in recruitment, they're in outsourced HR service provision across vertical sectors. They even deny the fact they're actually in recruitment. It's quite frightening to think about it. They're empathetic with their customers and candidates, they're good communicators on the telephone face-to-face, they're adaptable, they have drive and determination, they're self-motivators. When the leader's not there, they can still work, the place doesn't fall apart without them. They demonstrate actions, they don't just talk about it, and they become creative in their approach, which I think is absolutely critical as well. But one of the things I talk about a lot in my training programs is a thing called a vitality curve, and some of you would have heard me talk about this before, taking the concept from the Jack Welch GE concept, looking at the vitality curve, where you can split up your consultants within your business based on their performance into your bottom 30%, maybe your top 30%, and then your middle 40% down there. And one of the questions we often ask organisations is actually when you map out your consultants and you can put them in those brackets, how much more do you get from those top 30% over from those bottom 30%? Is it 2 times? Is it maybe 3 times? Is it maybe 4 times the return on your actual investment? So leadership is absolutely critical when you focus on this, and engagement is just as critical as well. If your employees are engaged in the leadership, then they will move forward like a boat will. This is a quote here from the Director of HR, Marks and Spencer's. The bottom bit I like in particular. It's been proven time and time again that employees that are engaged with your business plan and values are more motivated and deliver better results. We probably know that, that's fairly obvious. But how many of our consultants actually know what our business plan is? How many of our consultants actually know what our values are? Have we actually effectively communicated that to them? Maybe, maybe not. There's been a lot of research around engagement, which I find very interesting. We spend a lot of time trying to understand a bit about what really motivates and engages people within an organisation. So I just want to walk you through some of the research. And this is research from last year, which is aligning engagement to bottom line profitability. So how does engagement affect profit? How does it affect your customer relationships, your productivity, your innovation as an organisation, maybe even things like absence, turnover, retention of your staff as well. So I'm just going to show you a couple of slides, which is a bit of a summary of the research that came through. So first of all, on profiting customers. According to Airline Connector, organisations with higher engagement level, they outperform the total stock market index. They posted total shareholder returns 22% higher than average in their markets and twice the annual net income. Gallup and Hay Group suggested that companies with engagement scores in the top quartile average 12% higher customer advocacy, and 84% of the world's most admired companies said their efforts to engage employees has strengthened customer relationships. Gallup and the Corporate Leadership Council also suggested engagement scores in the top quartile average 18% higher productivity within organisations, and 71% of companies with above average employee engagement performed above their sector average. 59% of engaged employees say work brings out their most creative ideas, but only 3% of disengaged employees agree. Engaged employees are more likely to search out new methods, techniques, and transform innovative ideas within your organisation. I call that the purple cow effect. And the final part of it is absence and retention of your internal staff. We know how much this potentially costs. The engaged employees in the UK take an average of 2.67 sick days per year, while the disengaged take 6.2 days. Think how much that costs your organisations. And sickness absence costs the UK economy £17 billion per year. Amazing. Just to give an example of that, which really threw me the other day, is that one of my, because of the snow over the last couple of days, I live down the south coast of Kent, and my local school closed down. So we put a notice up saying basically all the fathers got together at 6 o'clock in the morning, went down to the school, and we shoveled it out to open up the school. We put it on Facebook, and the Facebook groups, everyone can know the school was open. We got complaints coming in from some of the parents saying, isn't it unfair that our kids have to work when everyone else is out playing? Think about the impact of that. It makes you wonder a little bit about the economy today. Okay, and finally, the bottom 10% generally has a 2 times more voluntary turnover within an organisation over the other ones. Okay, so leadership affects engagement, engagement affects your bottom line profitability, so we need to be able to work that out. Now, apparently, according to my research that we've done recently, less than half of you in the room are actually any good as leaders. So you'd like to put your hand up and think one of the good ones. I think you can do that, yeah, lovely. Okay, fantastic. So we actually did a bit of research with Gary and Julie from Global Recruiter. And over the last 3 months, we got some feedback from 1,028 recruiters. These are live people. And they gave us feedback about 200 leaders within the recruitment sector. And we asked them very simply 11 very simple questions to get a quick snapshot on what they thought about their leadership in the business. We kept it anonymous for obvious reasons, but there's some quite interesting feedback that comes out of it. I'm going to walk you through a very quick top-level summary of 3 areas that to me were the most concerning, I suppose, more than anything else. So the first one we can look at. My manager cares about how satisfied I am in my job. My manager cares about me as an individual. Roughly about 50% agreed with that. 50% disagreed with that. Half your workforce is saying that you don't really care about them in particular. What's even more concerning about that, my manager motivates me to give you the best every day. My manager helps me to fulfill my potential. The majority are saying that you don't do that, which I think is a little bit of concern. Okay. So the question I'd like to know is how much do we actually know about what truly motivates and engages our employees? Okay, and do we actually know that? You'll see in front of you, you have a second sheet of that you will see as you walked in today. A quick exercise I'd like you to do. We do this with a lot of organisations. It's an incredibly eye-opening experience when you go through this process, and I'm going to keep it very short and simple for you today. You'll see on that sheet 15 of the areas that potentially engage and motivate people the most, potentially. What I'd like you to do on that sheet that you've got, on the left-hand column where it says you, I'd like you for yourself to identify the top 5 things that you think motivate and engage you personally as a leader or as a consultant within your business. Okay, first of all. On the right-hand column, I'd like you to think of one of those bottom 30% performers you have in your organisations at the moment. Maybe one of those people who aren't performing as potentially they could do, but the potential is there. And I'd like you to try and identify what you think are their top 5 motivators and engagers. Work with the person next to you. You've thought about questions like this. Generally, when we talk to leaders and managers within organisations, generally our engagement motivation strategies are fairly much of a carte blanche approach. This is how all our staff are. Let's treat them all the same and do some initiatives and that type of stuff. The issue with that is that we're all individual people who all have different engages and different motivations, so it's a little bit different. If you don't know the answer to this question, you're guessing this potentially, I suggest you go back and ask your business and find out this information. What we tend to do with our clients is that we actually get you to mark all of your staff, then we actually ask all the staff to mark themselves, and you compare the notes between the two. And you will find often that either there's a mismatch between actually what we think motivates people and what actually does motivate them, or actually the things that truly motivate people aren't the things that we're actually doing as part of our engagement and motivation and initiative strategies. Last year, we actually went out to the market again, and we wanted to find out a little bit more information about actually what is it that truly motivates people. Out of that list there, which would you suggest were the top 6 motivators or engagers of people, of consultants within the recruitment sector? Just shout them out, but which do you think were the top 6?
Recognition.
So recognition, what else?
Personal life.
Personal life outside of work. Salary, we're in the money game obviously, let's go salary.
Achievement by self.
Achievement by self and departments. Promotion, advancement, promotion. Relationships and colleagues for that. Okay, fine. These are the answers. So we spoke to 1,350 recruiters, and there was a global survey that we did in partnership with APSCO and Global Recruiter. Some of the things that came out in this particular order, salary was number 1. Obviously, they're probably concerned that you're going to drop their salaries down. Interest in the work itself, achievement by self and department, advancement, promotion, recognition for good work, and job and the possibility of gaining new challenges. These are the 6 key motivators that people were saying that what motivates them the most in particular. Which out of all those do you think was the the number 1 thing that people put down as the number 1?
Interest in the work.
Achievement by self and department. People find recruitment very boring. No, not at all. Achievement by self and department was the key thing that people were coming out and saying, that's the one thing that motivates me more than anything else. Okay, so based on what I've just shown you there, and based on what you wrote down a second ago, at the bottom of that sheet, you need to identify and understand all of your staff as individuals. What is it that truly engages them? What is it that truly motivates them? And based on that feedback, you need to then do something about it. I've recounted this story hundreds of times before, I'm sure some of you have heard it before, but to me this was the most effective thing I've ever done in my organisation to improve engagement and motivation. A couple of years ago, we sent a survey out to all our staff around October time, and I said to them I was putting together a new workshop about work-life balance. So just to help them with my thinking, put some ideas together, could you come back and give me a few bit of feedback and a few ideas? So we asked them some questions such as, if I was to give you a day off, what would you do with that day? What is the one thing that you don't do enough of at the moment that you'd like to do more of in your personal life? What is your idea of a perfect Sunday morning? Etc, etc. We got all their feedback in, we forgot about it, we ignored it completely. At our Christmas party up in Manchester, up at the Hilton in Manchester, we had a few drinks, quite a few drinks, quite a lot of drinks actually. And at one stage during the evening, we handed out a load of envelopes to everybody in the room. And in the envelope, they all opened up at exactly the same time. And in the envelopes were a number of sheets of paper. Each sheet of paper was a gift from us, which was directly aligned to that feedback we got from them in October. One of the girls who worked for us, a lady called Carly, her perfect Sunday morning was to wake up next to her boyfriend, overlooking the sea, listening to Jimmy Buffett, Pirates and 40 on her CD or radio player, which I totally understand. So for her Christmas present we bought her, rather than giving her a couple of £100 worth of cash, on a more tax-deductible way, what we did instead, we organised a bed and breakfast for her with a CD playing when she arrived, for her and her boyfriend as a surprise. She broke down in tears. Never in my life have I seen so much engagement and re-motivation from someone ever before from a Christmas gift. And what they said to us was never in their life has anybody, a leader or manager of an organisation, has ever actually put so much thought and thinking into something like that before. We didn't really think about that much, but it was quite a fun process to go through. But the difference it makes is significant. A bit of effort makes a big difference. We could have just given her a couple £100 quid. Wouldn't have done much, I don't think, at all. Okay, if we go back to our leadership survey that we did with Global Recruiter. The next part, I feel that my manager talks openly and honestly with me. My manager shares important knowledge and information with me. It clearly seems that we're not sharing as much information as we should be with our employees. Okay? On a slightly more concerning note, my manager regularly expresses appreciation when I do a good job. I receive regular reviews and feedback from my manager. The majority say they don't get that. Okay? It's pretty hard, isn't it, for our consultants to really drive forward, for us to criticise our consultants, give them feedback, drive them on KPIs, if we're not actually giving them regular feedback in the first place, I think. Okay? So the question becomes then, how much information as leaders do we actually hand over to our consultant? Now, what is enough? What is too much, essentially? Okay? So, what I get, like back in your groups, I'd like to have a little chat about this. I won't get heavy on detail, but how much information should we be actually communicating to our consultants, to our staff, to our team about the business? How often should we be doing it? Who needs to be involved in that? I've put on there how, and I've written out earth, water, fire and air. Those of you who have been on my training courses before will know the differences between earth, fire and water and air. Different types of personalities had different ways of receiving and taking in communication. Okay, so have a little think about, in your groups again, how much information is enough and how much information is too much that we should be giving out to our consultants. What should we be telling our consultants on a day-to-day basis, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis? How much information should they have? Now remember, on the communication side of things, based on our report, it's not just about what we communicate and how we communicate, it's also about the feedback that we're giving to our employees and our consultants as well. So I often ask the question, what actually is feedback and what is its effect? But more importantly, how is it different from criticism? Okay, there's two very big differences. A lot of managers I deal with are very good at critiquing and giving criticism, not so good at necessarily giving feedback. Feedback to me is about moving forward, it's about developmental stuff, okay? It's about helping people progress. Whereas criticism on the flip side of that has quite negative connotations. People can be quite defensive about criticism, just focusing on looking backwards tends to be, and it can be aligned with people's personal agendas more so than objective what's actually happening, okay, with people as well. So think about the difference as leaders, are you giving feedback or are you actually giving criticism to your employees and to your staff, if you're giving anything at all, okay? The third area that we focused on, that we're going to talk to you about today from the engagement, from the leadership survey, I should say, sorry, is number one, I have confidence in the leadership skills of my manager, and there is a mutual respect between myself and my manager. Not so bad this time, which is good, but there's still quite a large area of people who are saying, actually, I don't really have the confidence or the respect of my manager in particular. Not particularly great, but they seem to like us a little bit more, which is good. Having said that, one question we did ask is, my manager is an excellent role model for me. Okay, a large majority said no, okay, which is, I think is a bit of a concern. So, if you think about in the recruitment sector, you'll have personally, I'm sure, your own role models, people that you've aspired to look up to over the years, etc. I've put some examples of some of the role models that I've seen in the marketplace from time to time, which is on the right-hand side down there. And one in particular comes to mind. I've got you in there, Graham. And one in particular comes to mind, is Anne Swain. I know Anne's not here today, and this is not trying to be polite and all fresh to Anne or anything from APSCO. But actually, if you look at Anne, those of you who know Anne Swain, look at her skills. Do you think she represents some of these skills that we identified from our top-level skippers at the beginning of this presentation? So is she visionary? Is she passionate? Is she a good decision maker? Is she a good team builder? Does she have integrity and conviction? Openness and honesty, empathy? Is she an effective communicator? Is she flexible? Does she have drive? Is she a motivator? Does she lead by example? And is she an innovator? And to me, as a role model in the recruitment sector, I wholeheartedly believe that Anne Swain in particular adheres to some of those things. And you will have your own role models. Probably some of the people actually in the room today might be your role models as well. What I'd like you to do, just to identify now, working with the person next to you again, close things off, out of that list there, identify the 3 areas of potential weakness for yourself as a leader of a recruitment organisation. Where do you think potentially you're not as strong as potentially as your particular role? If you're going to run an organisation, if you're going to lead a recruitment organisation, you need to be a role model for your staff. It's as simple as that. You need to demonstrate and display the behaviours that you're expecting them to be displaying back at you. It's very hard to performance manage somebody based on their behaviours and their attitude and what they're doing if you're not doing it yourself. Okay? So if we go back to our skippers, my good friends, skippers, 3 traits of highly successful skippers back into my cities at Hobart Yacht Race. What they're very good at doing is planning their routes or where they're trying to get to, engaging the right crew on board the boat, making sure they're engaged and motivated to deliver where they're trying to get to, and then adjust their sails and adjust their approach. Have you ever wondered, those of you who don't sail, have you ever wondered why boats never seem to go in a straight line? They're tacking and they're jiving, they're going left or right, etc., etc. The winning yacht can tend to be the one that's right over there, even though the yacht seems to be winning over there. Okay? They're continuously thinking about the prevailing conditions, how can they adjust their routes to make the most of it. In a similar vein, the first trait of highly successful recruitment leaders, you need to set a clear vision, you need to create a framework, and you need to align your plan. Okay? You need to communicate that plan to your employees, and you need to make sure that every employee in your team, their personal plans are aligned 100% to the organisational plan as well, and the organisational strategy. If they can see that, they can understand that, and the difference they make to the organisational goal, they will be more engaged. You need to mix with the best, internally and externally. Think about your onboarding processes. I'm still amazed how recruitment organisations, some of the recruitment organisations, are very good at filling desk space with people they're not really sure about, and wonder why 3 months later, 6 months later, they've left. Okay, we're recruitment consultants. We should know how to recruit effectively in our own business. We should be doing the same thing that we tell our customers to do every single day as well. But also from an external point of view, think about the suppliers that you work with, think about the peers that you hang out with, your colleagues, people in the room today. Share best practice, share knowledge, support each other. We all work well together. And the third trait of highly successful recruitment leaders is to adjust ourselves to the direction of the wind. The market conditions are changing every single day. If you carry on sailing the same sort of way that you've always sailed, you will be left behind with the rest of the fleet. Okay? If you want to make line honours as a boat, line honours as an organisation, you want to achieve real success, you need to continuously tweaking what you do all the time. And with that in mind, at the bottom of that sheet I gave you with a picture of the boat on it, I'd like you to agree to yourself and with the person next to you 3 adjustments, 3 tweaks that you are now going to make to your organisation from tomorrow. What are 3 things that you're going to do differently to improve the way that how effective your organisation is moving forward, based on what we've talked about so far? What I'd like you to take away from today more than anything else is to think about your leadership strategies, think about your leadership approach, think about some of the feedback that we're getting from our consultants in particular. Treat your organisation like a smooth, fast-moving vessel, like a fast-moving yacht. See if we can win line honours. One of the yachts that I admire the most in my experience of yachting is one called Wild Oats. Have any of you ever heard of Wild Oats at all? It's one of the most successful yachts in the city's Hobart Yacht Race. It's won the treble, which is the race record, the line and handicap honours in the same year. It's won the double, line and handicap honours in the same year as well. It's had 4 back-to-back line honour titles, and it actually achieved the fastest race, which was this year, or last year, where they did it in 1 day, 18 hours, 23 minutes and 12 seconds, again underneath that 2-day Holy Grail. It is no coincidence that also this guy called Mark Richard is the most line honours, has won the most line honours victories as well. So the most successful yacht in the City to Hobart race has been won by the same skipper. Okay, has the most success with the same skill as well. Okay? So, we can help you with this if you want our help. There's no charge for this at all. What we're offering people today in the room, if you'd like us to run an employee engagement survey across your business, anonymous, we will do that for you for free and we will give you a free report. We won't call you afterwards, don't worry, we'll hound you. We'll also run a Leadership 360 survey. We're going to expose you, find out from your leadership team how well you are really doing as a leadership team. Don't be scared, this is healthy feedback that you can improve upon. Okay, and I'm going to leave you with this final quote from Seth Godin, who's one of my heroes. There's always a defect, there's always a slow drip somewhere. Every plan, every organisation, every venture has a glitch. The question isn't, is this perfect? The question is, ultimately, will this get me there? Thank you very much.